super duper. Welcome, Mia, to our Leaders Who Care video conversation series. It's so good to have you here. Thank you.
Hi, Mark. So happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We're going to energize the world after this conversation. So it'll be the best place to start, I would say, is could you briefly introduce yourself, a tiny bit about your background, don't give it all away right away, and if you want to tell us something no one knows, you want to unveil it here, that's fine too, but tell us a little bit.
That's a sad thing. I don't think I have any secrets. I'm an open book. I always start with the fact that I'm an immigrant. I came to this country with my parents and my two sisters when I was 8 years old in the midst of a great turmoil, a coup d'etat in our home country of Ghana. My parents came to the United States with nothing and they sacrificed everything, but they had the conviction that their children could have a better life in the US, one filled with access and opportunity. And through them, I think I have internalized this notion of excellence and drive because they accepted nothing less, but always balanced with humility and gratitude. I'm so grateful because I've had the most incredible academic experiences and career experiences, a rich journey that has taken me all over the world, including a 3-year expat assignment in Brazil. I've worked in banking, in payments, in technology, in the food and facilities management sector. I've worked for large institutions and small entrepreneurial ventures. I've learned to speak multiple languages as part of my work. And I would say, Mark, that every job has taught me a lot. And I have tried to ensure that the roles that I've taken, the companies and institutions that I devote my life to, have been purpose-driven and aligned with my values. Outside of work, I devote myself to a number of causes, but primarily I'm passionate about anything focused on the empowerment of girls and disenfranchised youth. I'm passionate about issues of gender and racial equality, which have never been so important. And last but definitely not least, I am married to an amazing man, and together we have 2 children, 10 and 13.
And a dog.
And a dog named Ziggy. Why not? Just why not? Yeah.
No, thank you for that. I feel like you've answered 42% of my questions already.
Oh no.
No, it's good. It's all that was beautiful, and so it leads me to my next question. We all know Simon Sinek's why and all that, which I think is super valuable. I like to ask it a different way. Why do you do what you do?
I love that question so much, and I know Simon Sinek, and I know his why. I also have come to know this incredible nonprofit called Second Day, and they say there are 2 important days in your life: the day you were born and the day you find out why. I love that so much. For as long as I can remember, Mark, I have felt this compulsion, really, that I have to leave any space that I occupy better than I found it. It's just so ingrained in me, and I think it's because my life story, if we had a lot of time, you would discover that my life story is it's the outcome or the result of a series of what I call improbabilities. And so I know that every day is a gift, every experience, every moment experience is worth cherishing, even the really hard ones. And so my why is grounded in enormous gratitude for all that I've been given and also earned. I've learned to say that, also earned through just sheer grit and determination, with this deep-seated responsibility to give back, so that more people, no matter where they come from, what they look like, can have access and opportunity. Because, Mark, we know that a more inclusive economy strengthens society, and leads to better outcomes. I would say that, particularly as I've become a mother, that my ultimate why is my kids. Many of us have this shared experience of being parents. We were just talking about our kids before we clicked record. And we know that a more prosperous future has to be created for and ultimately sustained by our kids. So more than anything else, I hope that by word and by example, my kids are also learning to live their life compelled to do everything they can to expand possibilities for others.
It's interesting because as you talked about your parents and what they felt for you to achieve, sounds like they got the message across because you're sharing it with your kids.
I'm trying, we're trying, but I think here's the difference. I saw my parents really struggle. I mean, struggle for everything. I understood deeply the trade-offs they had to make. Um, I wouldn't say that I suffered as a child, but certainly we had so much to overcome as immigrants who came to this country without a lot of money. And I think that helped us really build character. It might have been hard there, but I am so grateful because it made me the person that I am. And I do sometimes worry if my kids have too much. We want to do so much more for our kids than we had. And I worry, I wonder about the long-term impact of that. So we're just having to find creative ways to help our kids understand how blessed they are, how much they have, and still feel like this tug to do something to help those who are less fortunate. But it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it is hard, and there is a difference in that they were in your parents were in a little bit, and my parents, when my grandparents came from Kiev and so on, so we're all about immigrants at the end of
Yeah.
the day, and they were more maybe in survival mode than we are, and I shouldn't say we in general because there's a lot of people that, especially now, are in survival mode, um, but it doesn't make it necessarily easy, as you say, to
Yeah.
to care for kids because there's other stresses like we talked about devices before and other stresses.
Yeah.
So much information, to take in, and how do you handle it rather than maybe keeping things basic. I want to ask you though along those lines, corporate wise, it's kind of taken decades for corporate leaders to get what you just talked about, to get that being interested in social environmental impact, being interested in your employees, being interested in caring is actually good for business versus business is all just about only making a lot of money and the other is just go work for a charity or something. Um, so corporate leaders have recognized, and there's been a tipping point where they realize they're not going to get the best talent if they don't care about the people. So your story's amazing to me. From Ghana, you were studied, involved in finance and sales, as you say, going to Portuguese speaking Brazil, and then Texas, talk about a culture shock, and so on, and all sorts of things there. So, when did you realize the Mia magic, if you will? I love that, and and to take on big challenges and to take on, like you said, and to know. Especially around including being a black descent, colored woman of color, how it was great to actually have diversity of people to achieve all these things. So it's a long comment and question, but it all comes together with respect to leaders caring and making all this happen.
Yeah. Honestly, Mark, as I reflect on my life, I can't remember a time when I didn't make that connection between my own sense of self, my own personal values, and social impact. And as I mentioned, my parents instilled in us that our lives, needed to be used to uplift others, and that if we didn't have that notion sort of central to our own personal mission, we would be squandering opportunities. And maybe it's because of what I knew we left behind. I've been in tune with, and I've seen so much suffering in the world. And we know that most people in the world really subsist on so little. They have so much to overcome. And yet, in my own home country of Ghana, when we go back, you see so much ingenuity, you see so much kindness, so much joy. So that has always been just core for me. But I think it did take me a little longer, however, to recognize that business could be used as a platform to do good. And to the point that you made, I thought that I would go work for a nonprofit. But as I decided that I wanted to have a career in business, I also understood that those two things could be inextricably linked. And so I've just been really intentional about working for purpose-driven companies and using business platforms to promote causes that have been important to me, and also aligned with the company's business model, because it has to be aligned with the company's business model. So I have found this happy coexistence between altruism and profits where all stakeholders win. And I think companies also recognize that that's good for the bottom line. So Sodexo, which is the company I work for today, has always actualized that for me. And I just know that work that endures, work that makes the world better, also offers the greatest satisfaction. And I have high satisfaction in my life right now. And I think it's because of that.
Yeah, it's great to hear. And talk a little bit about the diversity, though. Also, to me, growing up in Montreal, we didn't talk about you need diversity. We just had it, and it was wonderful because we learned different things and this and that, and different foods. It was a no-brainer. But it's not. It hasn't been that way necessarily for a long time, and somehow, and to some degree, had to be pushed, type of thing. So, from your perspective, I'll give you an example. A lot of times when we're doing the executive search, the talent part of our business, I've had women ask me, will they, when I join them, when they're on board me, will they put me in a position to win? Will I be able to not just do my job, but will I be able to, be part of a big project and have space to challenge and my ambition to flow? And will my boss allow me to interact with his boss, or am I not allowed to talk to him? They'd ask me questions like this. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's one, to the point you made, diversity doesn't just happen. We have to be so convicted and steadfast in our conviction that more diverse workplaces, one, drive better performance, but also just good for culture and morale. Um, what I find so striking is that you're having conversations with women who are thinking about things that perhaps their white male counterparts do not have to think about, or are going to take for granted. And I think at the heart of this is just compassion, the ability to walk in somebody's shoes without literally walking in their shoes, but just understanding, one, that inequality is deep and wide, and that not all forms of inequality are equal. And I think about this a lot as I think about what white women have had to overcome, with, suffrage and the breaking of the glass ceiling. And I find that they can be incredible allies to their Black sisters, but we have to recognize that that kind of inequality also feels different, and the Black experience is different than the Latinx experience, is different than the LGBTQ experience. And I think we as leaders have to really internalize what it feels like to be an other, and use that to help shape workplaces where people can feel safe. And not just feel safe, because I used to talk about this notion of safety so much, and I think that's a prerequisite. But we also have to create workspaces where people that are different can thrive. And that just doesn't, it doesn't just happen. And what I find so fascinating about the moment that we're living in is that the leadership structure that is usually dominated by white men have to be willing to take the step back and say, this may not be in my immediate self-interest, but this is good for society and it's good for business. And so I may have to subvert or subordinate, what has felt instinctive, because I have benefited from the structures that exist, and create an environment where all people exist. And I just think that is fraught with so many questions about altruism and self-interest. And it's a really important and interesting thing that I think leaders are grappling with today. But if you think about longevity of business, resilience of business, you can't do it unless you diversify, not just diversify, but ensure an inclusive environment. So I think we are motivated today, but we have to dig in and dig deep and be prepared to do this for this work for the long run.
Yeah, and I think it's the business leaders who care that are going to have to be the ones to do it. And sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, Mia, what are you feeling? How's it going? Like, for real, in there, like,
right.
And listening, not just making it a question and Okay, we'll get back to it or something like that. Or my
Yeah,
door's always open, but try not to come in too often. Or
yeah,
whatever. So,
yeah,
um, my grandparents, I told you they were from Kiev, and they would always say with their Kiev accent, they would say, the most important thing is as long as you have your health. That's the most important thing. And then
yeah,
they'd say education, but it was the health. And very much, I think, like yours, it wasn't a slogan. It was life, real life. That the health. If they had their health, they could do anything. That was the most important thing. So here we are. We've got technology still speeding along with the sound of light. You got COVID pandemic going still crazy. You got the tipping point that was bound to happen, racial justice, equality. Finally, you got wildfires. You got this and that. I heard governor of one of the states the other day when they were starting to distribute the vaccines. He went up to the podium and said, "A snowstorm, really?"
yeah. I heard that too.
And
Yeah.
it was like he couldn't believe it. How when is it safe to go back in the water? Type of deal. So what's your feelings? What have you seen with respect to people having an awakening of even as basic as what's important?
Yeah. I think we've had a lot happen in 2020 to fundamentally change our collective psyche. Um, but I'm not sure yet how deeply people have been moved and moved to action because I still see so much friction. And I think people are inherently good, but I feel this tension between people wanting to do good and seeing it somehow at odds with their own personal interest.
Right.
I see that people can easily compartmentalize, and if bad things don't happen to them personally, it feels abstract and they don't necessarily see their role in making it better. And if I choose not to be jaded because I want to see people as inherently good, then that's the only explanation I have for what has transpired in our country under the Trump presidency. And I used to not ever want to bring politics into these kinds of conversations, but it would be irresponsible not to, intellectually dishonest not to. Um, because I'm grappling with this because in spite of what's happened in our country, 70 million people, over 70 million people still voted for him. And
Mhm.
among them, I'm sure, are people who care about climate change, people who care about social and racial inequity, people who worry about the state of our economy and healthcare and education. Yet they were okay with the chaos and the threats we all experienced under his presidency. And so while I know people are more aware now about societal ills, and their impact because you can not have looked away over the last few months. I'm not convinced that people in the broadest sense feel compelled to or know how to fix it, primarily because we've somehow accepted that there have to be winners and losers in society. It's this binary thing, and that uplifting many more means taking materially away from others. And I reject that wholesale. But I think that's where business comes in. CEOs and executives have to take a stand. I think that we have to cultivate corporate cultures that create awareness and give people space to reflect and perhaps even the skills and the resources to be part of the solution. And companies have to take the lead because the issues that we're confronting are not just they're not just moral in nature. And I can acquiesce that people don't go to work for morality lessons. I get that. But the issues that we're confronting are also very much economic. So businesses understand that sustaining profits mean that we have to contribute to and do our fair share to ensure that communities are thriving. So everything that we're talking about ultimately comes down to a business case and an ROI on social responsibility. And I know that it's there. And if that's how things get fixed, I'm totally okay with that. I'd much more people feel it deep down inside and just want to do it because it's the right thing to do. But I'm also okay having this be economically driven.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and I can do an hour interview with you just on that topic. Actually, it's you said something, a lot of brilliant things there. One thing that really got me was um, winners and losers. I never understood whether it was sports where teams had trade and they said this team won the trade, that team lost the trade. Well, how can it be good for the league if a team lost the trade? The league, to have the league successful, everybody's got to be in the game and
Yeah.
not lose. And in the same way, um, we shouldn't define people as losers. You may lose a game, but doesn't make you a loser. You may lose an
Right.
election, doesn't make you a loser.
That's right.
Lose an argument, doesn't make you a loser. So we've got to get by, which exactly what you said, that I won, and that means you lost, bud, type
Yeah.
of thing. And Chappelle said it really well on Saturday Night Live. He talked about humble winners, and humble winners don't put the losers down, like right away. And so it's an amazing topic, and I think every generation wants to make a difference, but I think the era we're in right now has finally got it where business realizes it's better for business, and they need to do it, and they'll actually feel better. God forbid, they'll feel better doing it.
Yeah, that's right. It makes you feel good.
Yep, and that's critical. So, what role do you think business leaders who care about their talent need to play with what I call their three well-beings? There's financial well-being, there's the physical well-being, and there's mental well-being, which includes spiritual at the same time. What role do you think leaders have to play to ensure all those are there for their talent?
Yeah. In my lifetime, I have not seen this kind of immense volatility and uncertainty with people just on edge. And so when we say in organizations we want our team members to bring their whole self to work, we need to mean it. And it also means that organizations and leaders need to be equipped to address the implications of making the workplace safe, a place where we're invested in both physical and psychological safety of others. And while the way that we connect and interact has changed in the last year, I think our foundations have not, and leaders still need to care deeply. And we have the responsibility to encourage and support a very diverse workforce, people that are coming from all walks of life, converging into space to try to better a business. And so what I know is that transformation starts with us. I know deep, deep in my soul that ultimate leadership is about caring deeply, which is why I love so much the work you're doing, and that we can care and we can lead inclusively. And typically, what that has meant for me is that I have given my teams the latitude and the respect to be authentic and to speak their truth, and that I've been willing to also reveal my own vulnerability, because in doing so, you allow others the freedom and the safety to reveal their own. And oh my goodness, that is when the magic really starts to happen in the workplace.
Right. Especially, it's so brilliant what you say, because people want to be put in a position to succeed and show everybody, and even show their boss or their coach or whatever, we did it, and that's it. And that's even goes for kids too, with parents,
Yeah,
same thing. And with people really working remote, it's even more necessary, because you have to trust them. You can't look over their shoulder all the time. So if you do and say, okay, yeah, you can work from home, just you get it done. That's all I ask for. Uh,
absolutely.
it's awesome. So last thing on this little part, what would you say, with everything happening in 2020, what you're most grateful for as this year concludes?
I'm grateful for a lot of things, but it's hard not to be grateful for health when you've seen so many people lose their lives to COVID, to racial unrest. So I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful that the bonds of my family have never been so strong. I think this has been defining for people, who've been coexisting in small spaces. So I'm grateful that we still love and cherish each other, that we've become, I think, kinder, more patient, better communicators. Like, we've really worked on this, and that we, especially my kids, are building, I hope, both character and resilience as a result of 2020. Nobody wanted this year, with all the death and insecurity the pandemic has created. But I think we needed 2020 as a massive reset. And the question that we ought to ask ourselves is, who will we become after? And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we will be better after.
Well, I'm with you. I think I do think we will, and I do think it's a reset. Things don't happen for no reason, or they do happen for a reason, and
Yeah.
it puts the opportunity in front of us to recognize it. So
I
I don't know
agree.
you that long yet, but you are clearly one of the leaders who cares. And it's so fantastic having you here and sharing with us. And, like we say in LA, you got to leave them wanting more so you can do a sequel.
That's the ultimate compliment because that is really how I want people to see me, um, as a leader who performs, deliver results, but also somebody who cares. And I don't think those two things are incongruous. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.